A very good evening to all of you. This is Yogen from Fast Coding School. Please confirm if you can hear me. Okay, Bharti saying yes. Okay, Meenu saying yes. Okay, fine. Thank you, Ankur. Today we are at day 4, right? So we started this series on Monday, and from there onwards we have been learning new concepts every day. And today's focus is on a very interesting part of Python programming, that is functional programming in Python. So I'm not going to define what the functional programming is. I'll clear it out, or I will explain it during the coding part when we do something in the code. There we'll understand what the functional programming is and how it works, and is it a feature with other programming languages as well. That we will understand. In functional programming, a couple of items are there in Python that we are going to learn today. When you talk about functional programming, we need to understand what the map function is in Python. We need to understand what the filter function is in Python, and we need to understand what the reduce is there. And while learning these three functions, or while using these three functions, in problem solving, we also understand one particular concept that is known as lambda functions. So we'll understand the lambda functions as well. And all of these are kind of a package under a functional programming feature in Python. Other than these, a functional programming stuff, will understand something which is called as list comprehension. So we'll understand that part as well, that what the list comprehension is. So these are the kind of action items that we are going to learn today. And as usual, let's move to our RAPL. So here we have our RAPL and ready to start. So let's start with the fact. Okay, so yesterday we had a learnings around a couple of data structures in Python. One was the list data structure, where we understood that how we can manage the data in a list. So maybe we can append the data, maybe we can pop the data, maybe we can insert the data, maybe we can remove the data, maybe we can sort the data, maybe we can reverse the data, maybe we can clear the list as well. So a lot of functionalities, a lot of methods were used, that how you can play around with your data if it is in a list. And a list is basically a mutable data structure that you can modify it, right? After that, we understood what the tuple are, and tuple are read only. And once initialized, you cannot make any changes into those. You can apply indexing, you can apply looping, but you cannot insertion. You can make insertion, you cannot make deleting any particular item from the tuple. That was that. And we also understood the basics of the that how you can define a function in Python. So we'll continue with the functions today as well. We'll define a couple of functions for our use today. Now, let's start with list only, and we'll do something around that. So let's say we have a list, and again it has a couple of items: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, for example, right? And now, what I want to do with this list, I want to calculate the square of every item I want to calculate the square of every item in the list 1 and want to store them in another list. Want to store them in another list. So how we can do that? So that was the case we discussed yesterday. That maybe you can do one thing. You can a loop around list 1. So how you can do that? For each item in list 1, right? And now we are going to calculate the square of every item. So how we can do that? We can simply do item into item, as of now. So we can do item into item, and what we can do with this expression, maybe we can append the square to another list. So what we can do in that case, we can have a list 2 which is a blank initially, no items into this, and now we can do one thing, a list 2 dot append. So this way, we are reading the data from list 1, and at the same time, we are just making a square of it and appending it to another list. So that will basically have all the square values of your individual items from the list 1 to a list 2. So here we go. So see what happens in the list now, and that you can see. If you don't want to do this item into item and you want to make use of math library, that you can do. So how to do that? Maybe you can do import math, right? Math library now, and we can make use of a math function, that is POW, if you remember, right? Math dot POW. It requires 2 parameters, right? So what we have item, and what we want to do with the item, we want to calculate the square. So what should be the next parameter? It should be 2. So this is there. And now if you go with this approach, what happens in your code? Let's print the values in the list 2. So we print the list 2. But here you can see this time all the values are in float, right? All the values are in the float. Why? Because this mathematical function POW basically returns the float values. So if you want to keep or if you want to retain the integer part only, so maybe you can do one thing, you can typecast, right? So how you can typecast? You can typecast the values returned by your math function POW, and typecasting them to integer and then appending. So this is how our chaining is happening. The first, this innermost function would be called, then getting typecasted into an integer, and then getting appended. This is how this happens here. Now I think we are okay, missing one. So this time you will get all the integer items into your list. So much cleaner than earlier one. Now, I want to write another version of this code. This was my first version, so I can maybe I can say this is my version 1, right? So this is my version 1. What can be the another version of this? So I'll write that part. So this was simple to understand because we have already discussed this kind of mechanism in yesterday's part as well. Now I'll bring this list 1 so it's visible to you. Here I will bring it here. Now let's see what we are doing, and then I'll explain what is this. So we start that is kind of a shortcut method actually. So here we have this square bracket, okay? And now inside the square bracket, I write a for loop. So how to write that for loop? See this. For each item, right? For each item in list 1. That is a kind of a loop. That is how our iteration will work, right? For each item in list 1, what to do with the item? What we want to do with the item, that expression can be written here just before 4, right? So we can write that expression here. So what we want to do with the item, we want to calculate the square. So how we can do that? We can do this way. So item into item. So what we are doing for each item in list one, what we are doing, we are calculating the square, right? So this is, also one of the way. So let me, comment out the earlier part. So here we go. So that's the commented part. So I'm just commenting the version 1, and then and see, and let's print the output of this expression. So I'll just use print here, and let's see if things are fine. Okay, so now see what is happening. Do you see, guys? We are getting the same output what we had using loop mechanism. This concept, this expression that we have written to calculate the square of every item in the list one, this concept is known as list comprehension in Python. This is known as a list comprehension in Python, right? So this is also, we can take one more example if you want. Let's see what can be the example. Okay, so let's say we have a list one, and inside list one we have couple of items, like we have a name Amar, for example. Then the second name is Akbar, and let's say the third name is Anthony. So these are the three names in my list one. Okay, and now what I want to do, I want to calculate the length of every item in the list one. Can I write a list comprehension for that? Can you guys try that, how we can write a list comprehension if you want to calculate the length, right? I can write a for loop based approach for this. For that, it would be simply like doing something that we are having a empty list, and then we are saying that for each name in list one, what we want to do, we want to calculate the length of each name. So how we can calculate the length? Using this mechanism, right? And what we want to do with this length, we just want to append it to list 2. So how we can do that? List 2 dot append, and then appending this value. So here you get all the length of every item, right? But what can be the list comprehension approach for this? So what can be the list comprehension? So here you see we have the list 2. So it tells you that the length of this item is 4, length of this item Akbar is 5, and this one is 7. Can you try with the list comprehension? Would you like to try, guys? What can be the list comprehension approach if you want to calculate? I think that should be simple now. So how we do go? Okay, we go this way. We have a square. Then what do we do, guys? For each name and list 1, right? That's it. And what should I do here? Here, what should I write the expression? The expression, Bharti, you're right. So expression would be this, right? So we can copy this expression here and just paste it here, and things would be working for us now. So here I can do print. So maybe I can do print, or maybe I can do, assign this to another list as well, right? I can assign this to a list 3 and then print the list 3. That is, same. So here we go. And then you can see we are getting the output 4, 5, 6. So please confirm if list comprehension is clear to you. Please confirm, guys. It's kind of a shortcut way, right? It's a kind of a shortcut way. So Dr. Muthu saying, okay, okay. Yeah, please confirm if things are clear so far with you. Yeah, Bharti, you can do that. Okay, Ankur, thank you. Ankur saying it's all clear. Meanwhile, also saying yes. Okay, good. Kalyan, things are clear at your end? Okay, fine. Uh, After understanding two concepts, that if you want to calculate the square of each item in the list one, maybe you can use for loop mechanism, or maybe you can use a list comprehension approach as well. And now I'm going to write a third version, right? Now I'm going to write a third version to get the same output. What same output? That we want to calculate the square. So how we can do that? For that, let me do a couple of things first, and then I'll explain what is happening, what we are doing. So first of all, what I want to do, I want to write a function that can calculate the square of any value that is being passed to that function, right? So how we can do that? We can write a function def, that is my keyword. And let's say I want to name that function as a square value, for example, right? The square value. This is the name of the function. It will take, let's say, x as input, and then it will return me the square. So how it will return me the square? X into x. So this is how the function will work for me, right? And now you can see, if I run this piece of code, and then I say, let me call this function here, right? So square a value, and now let's say I want to pass on the value 5. So it should give me 25. So it's working, that means, right? Or maybe I can, call with something else. So let's say if I call this some other value, here we get 81. So this is working. So if I pass on any value, right? So x will hold that value and finally return the x square. So this is how we are using it. Now, after this, defining this function square value, I'm going to call a inbuilt method or inbuilt function in Python, and the name of that function or method is map. Here you see map. Okay, and now we're going to call this map actually. That will do our job. Okay, how it will do our job? Map requires two parameters from you. Okay, what are those parameters? The first parameter is a function, right? First parameter is a function. So what function we have as of now? We have written this function, right? So we'll use this function as a parameter. So we just need to have a name of this function as a parameter to map. So guys, mind it, this is not call of the function. We are just passing the name. If it would have been a call, it should be like that. But we are not doing this, right? We are just passing the name of the function square value. And after that, we need to pass our data source. What is the data source we have? Our data is in list one. So here we have the data source. This data source can be list. This data source can be a tuple. This data source can be a string as well. So you call it sometimes iterable, right? The collection of the data which can be used in some looping kind of mechanism, or it can be iterated over one item, then next item, then next item, like that. So this is, we have, can you see a map? Okay, then it requires two parameters. Okay, first one is the name of the function, second one is the data source. So everything is ready with us, so we can pass on. And let's print what we get in the output. So we just we are going to print what it will return. Who will return? The map function, and let's run it. So see what happens. Okay, so it worked, but can you see it is giving me a kind of object at a certain address. So it says that I have done my job, and you can get the data at this location basically. So it returned me an object, right? And I don't understand what is written there. So to understand clearly, what I can do, I can typecast this object to a list. So I can typecast this object to a list. So now see, will this work for us? So here we go. Oh, there's some error. Okay, let me check. Yeah, so seems to be some error. What's that? Do we need something else? Oh, okay, fine. So here we go, right? So can you see this time we got the output, and can you see that now we are getting a square of every item, right, from list one. So how it is working? How it is working? Let me explain this. So the working of this is like this. Here we go. Uh, see what we did. We had a data in the list one, right? So we had a data in the list one, which was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That was the data. Then what we did, we wrote a function, and what was the function name? Square values, right? That was the function we had. And now what is happening in the map? So basically, see this. This is map. Okay. Okay. Here we have the data. What was the data? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 6. That was the data. Okay. Now what will happen, right? Map has this function square value. Okay, map has this function square value. So now what map will do? Map will take the first item from this list, passing this item to the function square value and giving the item. So here we get 1. Then map will do taking the next item 2 from the list, passing it to the square value function, then calculating the output here, right? Then passing the 3 again, so getting the 9 here. Passing the 4 to square value and then getting the 16 here. Passing the 5 to square value, then getting the 25 here. And then finally 6 here and then 36 here. So this is how your output would be, right? So here you get the list. This is your output. So this was the input list, right? And this was the output, and this is how internally map is working for you, right? So now after doing this, basically what is happening in the map, we are passing a function as a parameter. A programming languages which allow you, right, which allow you to pass a function as a parameter while calling another function. These kind of programming languages are called functional programming languages, right? So those languages in which you can pass function name as a parameter, right? These programming languages are called as functional programming languages. Now, is the functionality of the map clear, or should I take one more example? Or should I take one more example? Can you please let me know? So Dr. Mothu saying yes. Bharti saying take one more example. Okay, okay, one more. Okay, fine. So we can do with that. Do you remember that we had a list, right? So let's see, we had a list. So this time I'll take a list one, which has a couple of US city names. So what are those US city names? So maybe we have this Los Angeles, right? So this is the first name we have. Let's say then we have San Diego. Here we have the second name. Let's say we have San Jose. So this is we have. Okay, so let's say 3 names we have. This is. Now, what we want to do, Using map functionality in Python, we want to calculate the length of every item in the list one. We want to calculate the length of every string, right? This is item one, which is a string. This is item two, which is again a string. This is item three, which is again a string, right? So what we want to do, we want to calculate the length of every city name in the list one, but this time using a map. So how should we approach? The approach should be very simple. That first we need to write a function that calculates the length, right? That calculates the length. So we can do one thing. We can define a function, right? And maybe I can, do something like check length, for example. This is the name of the function, and let's say pass on the x, right? And simple, what it will return? It will return me the length, right? So how we can return the length? Using alien function, and then that's it, right? So this is there. So that's my function is. And now what I can do, I can go for a map functionality. So how we can do that map functionality? Map is there, right? What it will require? It will require me a function. So what is the name of our function? Check length, right? So this is the name of the function. And where the data is lying? Data is lying in the list one, right? And what additional things we need to do? We need to typecast it, right? So we can typecast it to list. Okay, so this is there. Either I can print it, or maybe I can assign it to some, another list. So maybe let's say assign it to a list two. So see this. This is how So Dr. Muthu, you are right. Dr. Muthu is saying how to check available function, right? So obviously, Dr. Muthu, this is the function that we have written from our side. Based on our requirement, we are writing this function. This function is not available anywhere in the Python library or Python programming language. This is the function based on our need, we are writing this function. So if you want to calculate the length, we write the function that way. If you want to calculate something else, we write the function that way. So this is, a user, this is kind of a self-written script you are right. That is this, right? So this is up to us. That will completely dependent on problem statement, that how you should implement a function that would be used in the map, right? That would be used in the map. So it's just a function that you need to pass on. So exactly what is happening? The map is doing a kind of a repetition only. If you say it's just doing a one-on-one repetition. How it is doing one-on-one repetition? It takes first item from the list one, right, and calling this function. It taking the next item from the list and calling this function. Taking the next item from the list one and calling this function. So it's a kind of uh, a looping inside, right? It's kind of a looping inside only, right? But a shortcut way of doing it, right? And now you can see this, that what we get here. So we get the output in the list two and we can print it. So this is, can you see 11, 9, and so this is there. So Dr. Muthu, I'm writing this code in RAPL.it, right? And this is the main.py file. So it's all over the cloud, right? So it's all over the cloud, main.py. I'm writing this code. And the function is this, which I just defined as per my need, right? This is the function that I defined as per my need only. So now let me know, is that clear now? I used one more example, that how you can call a map function in Python. So Bharti saying yes, Meenu saying clear, Dr. Muthu saying clear now. Okay, Kankur saying I'm good. Kalyan. Okay, fine. So this is how things are working so far. Okay, then I was talking about the functional programming. I told you that Python is not a complete functional programming language. It's a partial Partially, it is a functional programming language, because what is the feature of a functional programming? The first feature of a functional programming is that you can pass a function as a parameter while calling another function. And that's what we are doing here, right? Map is a function, and we are passing one parameter, you know, a function itself. So passing function inside a function. So that is the one feature of a functional programming language. What is the next feature of a functional programming language? In a complete functional programming language, there is no concept of looping. There is no concept of looping, no while, no for, nothing, no loop. Then how, we achieve the loop in that way? How we achieve the iterations in that way? The functional programmings use only a recursion mechanism, right? Functional programmings use only a one concept that is known as recursion. Do you remember that recursion concept, right? A function calling the same function, right? Function calling the same function inside it, right? So we go in kind of a function calling the same function, then again calling the same function, then again calling the same function. That is kind of a recursion. So there is no looping in a complete functional programming language. But in Python, we have, while loops and for loops. And that's why Python is not a complete functional programming language. It is partially a functional programming languages, right? Then what are the functional programming languages? Do we have some examples? Yes, we have an example. If Ericsson, there is a company, right? Ericsson, which makes these switches for communication, right? Those BTS and all those mobile connectivity. So Ericsson uses their in-house language called Erlang. There is a language called Erlang. So this is the name of that language, right? This is a complete functional programming languages, and functional programming languages are very good in handling the real time processing, because you need a switch that can connect millions of callers, right? At any given point of time. So that's why you need language like functional programming languages. So Erlang is that. Scala, if you have heard, Scala is also a functional programming language. So a couple of languages there. Now coming to one more example from map. So and then I'll switch to next part. So let's keep this list with us. We'll use it later on. Okay. And in fact, we can, may require this function as well later on. So I'll just, commenting out. Yeah. Let me take one more example. This time I have a list one, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. And now I define a function, right? Is even, right? So this is the name of the function, and now the name suggests that it will check whether a particular value is even or not, right? So how to check for even and odd? If this number x is fully divisible by 2, right? That means it will give the remainder 0. So we can compare the remainder with 0. If that is 0, that means this condition is true. That means our value, our x is a even number. So in that case, I will return true. Can you see this? I am returning true. Now, if that doesn't work, if that condition is not true, we need to return false in this case. So we can return a false in this case. Can you see? This is the false we are returning. So this function is very simple. It will check for a value and saying true and false based on the condition, whether it's an even number or it's a odd number. If it's even, it will return true. If it's odd, it will return a false one, right? And we can see this function as well. Here we can call is even, right? We're calling this function here. So when we say check for 2, it says true, and then we are saying is even, check for 9, then it says false. So it's working for us, right? And now I'm calling the map function again. So how what we are doing with the map function now? I'm calling the map function. So map here, can you see this map? And I need to pass on the name of my function is even, and then I need to pass on the data. So that is in list 1. So what you say, what it will return? Will it return a list having true false? Yes, it will return a list having true false. So how it will return true false? Let's see. Can you see? We get false, true, false, true. See this, right? So, okay, Dr. Muthu. So now you can see this, that map will take one item at a time from the list 1, and calling this function is even, right? So 1 is passed for the first time, and then what would be the output for 1? Obviously, it would be false. In the next situation, what will happen? Now map will take second item from the list. So now this time it will pick 2, calling this function, and obviously this time we get true, right? And the next situation, list from list, we are picking 3, calling this function, and then are giving false. So this is how we get a false, true, false, true, false, true. A kind of simple to understand. But here you can see in the output, everybody, that we are getting true, false, and that's okay because we called map. But somehow this is not solving our purpose, right? Because although we are getting true, false, but we don't know that which values are even and which values are odd, right? We don't know. And we are interested in only to filter out the values from this list which are even. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm only interested to filter out those values from the list 1 which are even, right? And for that purpose, I need to call another function that will filter out the values for me. And what is that function? This time, instead of calling map, I'm going to call a one more function that is called filter. Okay, see, filter. And now you have to focus, very interesting part. In the filter again, we have 2 parameters to pass. The first parameter obviously again is a function. So this time we are calling our function is even, and this time we are calling our function our data list 1, right? Obviously filter will also give us an object, so I need to typecast it to a list now. Can you see? And I'm printing it, so I just print it as well. So this is how you print it. So can you see, we are calling map here, and we got the output that is there, false, true, false, true, false, true. And now this time I'm calling a one more inbuilt function from Python filter. And that also takes 2 parameters, obviously the function name and the data source, right? And now you see what we get in the output. So we have 2 print statements here. And do you think what is happening here now? And the first print gave us false, true, false, true, false, true. But in the second output, we can see we are only getting, right? We are only getting true, 4, and 6. These are the even values. But how it is working? What is the criteria for filtering, right, Dr. Muthu? Think. In filter, we are calling which function? Is even function, right? We are calling is even function, right? Now, filter will give us those values on the output from list 1. Filter will give us those values in the output from list 1, right, for which this function returns true only. If the function returns true, we get that value in the output. If function returns false for that value, we don't get that value in the output. So do you get? So what happens here? In the filter will call the first item from the list 1. The first item is 1. It will call is even. we get the response false. So we don't get 1 in the list output, right? In the next iteration, it gets 2 from the list 1. We call the is even function, returns true, we get the output 2. In the next iteration, we get the third, a value that is 3. We call this function is even, we get false again, we don't get that value. In the fourth iteration, we get 4 from that, right? And then it calls is even function. This time it will return true. We get 4 in the output, right? And in the second last, we get 5 from the list 1. We call this, we get false again. We don't get the value in the output. And then in the last iteration, we get the 6 from the list 1, pass it to is even, get true. So this is how we get the output. So in output, we only get those values for which function has returned true for us. So now you have to take care of two things. While calling map, your function can return anything. And whatever it returns, we get that value in the output. It can return a Boolean value. It can return an integer value. It can return something else. It can return a tuple. It can return anything. Whatever it returns, we get the output while calling map. That is simple process. But filter is a little different. Whatever function that you pass here while calling filter, it should always and always return true and false only, because that is the a criteria for filtering, right? That is the criteria for a filtering. So this function should always return a true and false. And based on that true and false values, we get an output in the list. Is that clear, or should I take one more example to understand a filter more clearly? Please, your so Kalyan saying I'm good. Okay. Meenu saying I'm clear. Shankar saying I'm okay. Bharati, okay. But just giving a little more a little more complexity. Let me take one more example for you, right? Let me take one more example for you. Okay, but before I should take that example, then I can refine a couple of things here. I'll come back to this. Okay, see, we had this list, right? So I'm just going to use this list again. I'm going to use this list again. See, right? And in this list, what is my requirement now? And then maybe you can think around that how we are going to solve it. From this list 1, I want to print out only those cities which has San in the name. What is my requirement this time? I want to filter out those cities from the list. That means I want only those cities in output which has San in the name. So obviously, the output would be San Diego and San Jose only. Los Angeles will not come in the output. But how to do that? How to achieve that? How we can write a function that can filter out? How we can write a function that will, return a true and false based on this condition? Can we write our own function? Yes, we can write our own function. How we can do that? So I can do this way. For example, I define the function. And this time, let's say I give the name F1, So, and now it will take, let's say, X, right? And now I need to check whether San is in X or not. If San is in X, I will return true. If San not in X, I will return false. So how to check for that? So I will say if, right? If San, this is my substring, in X. This is very simple, a condition to check. So this will, give us a true or false, basically, right? So if San in X, what I can do, return true. Else, what I need to return? I need to return false. So I need to return false. See this. So I need to return false here. Can you see? F1 X. So if san in X, that means if san is found somewhere in X, maybe in the beginning, maybe in the middle, I don't care about that, right? But san has to be there, right? And if it is there, I will return true. Otherwise, I will return false. And now how we can call the function, our function, which is filter, which is very simple now. We call print, then we call the typing to, list, and then I call a filter. Here I call filter. What should be the name here? F1 is my function name. What the data is, it is in list one, right? So here we go. So will it return those cities only which carry san somewhere in their name? So oh, it got disconnected. Okay, it's connected back. Okay, now here we see. Oh, something wrong here. Did I use something additional? So, okay, so, oh, so that was F1. Let me complete again. I think I lost it. So this is my function name and this is my data source. And here I complete it. Okay, fine. So here you go. And can you see, we only got 2 cities in the output. Can you see this? We got only 2 cities in the, why we got 2 cities only? Because for Los Angeles, it returned false to us. So we are not getting in the output, right? For San Diego and San Jose, obviously it is returning me a true. And it is giving me those cities in the output. So it has filtered out based on this. This is our filter, right? And how our filter is working, we'll get the output. Okay, now a couple of optimizations are possible here. Couple of optimizations are possible. And what are those optimizations? Actually, see on the console, right? If I say san in San Diego, right? San in San Diego, this will directly return me a true or false, right? See this, right? Or I say san in, for example, Mill Valley, right? So san in Mill Valley here, and then false. That means we don't need if and else because this expression directly giving us true or false, right? If this text is in this, it returns true. If it is not, it is written me. So why should I write if and else this way? I can directly say like this, that please return this expression. This expression itself is a true false only, right? So I can say san in x. This expression itself will evaluate to a true and false value, right? So we don't need to look for if and else kind of conditions. So see what we get. We get the same output here. Did you understand this concept? Why I removed if and else part from this? Ankur, Bharti, Dr. Muthu, Minu, Kalyan, right? So, okay. Yeah, Ankur, thank you. Yeah, right. Bharti, is that clear with you, Kalyan? Okay, so basically what I was doing, Kalyan, initially my function was like this, right? Initially my function was like this, right? And here I was checking whether this is true or false, right? If this is true, I was returning true. If this is false, I was returning false, right? So if I just have to return true or false, I can directly return this expression only because this expression eventually evaluates to true and false only, right? So I don't need, a separate checking of if and else because when I do, if I check that what is returned by this expression, what is this is expression, Kalyan, san in, Diego, right? San in Diego, let's say. So in this case, you can see it returns me false, right? But when I say san in San Diego, for example, it returns me true. That means I can directly return this expression. I can directly return this expression means I can remove everything and I can say return and this expression san in x. So this is my expression actually, right? So this is my expression. So this is how you get it. Okay. Now, what change I should do here? What change I should do here so that I get a Los Angeles in the output rather than San Diego and San Jose? What should I do this? What change I can make? Right. This time I want to filter those cities where we don't find a San in their name, right? How we can do that? So I think we need to negate it, right? So see this. If I say San not, okay, this time I'm using a keyword not actually, right? Saying Diego, right? So I'm saying San Diego not in Diego. San not in Diego. Yes, it's right. It's a correct statement, right? So this time we'll get a true here. But saying San not in San Diego, no, this is incorrect. San is there in San Diego, right? So this time we'll get a false. So if I want to filter those cities only which has no SAN or SAN, I just need to say not here, right? And in this case, out will change to Los Angeles. Can you see? Because this time this function gave true for Los Angeles and gave false for San Diego and gave false for San Jose. And we only get the output for which we get a true while calling this function f1. Is that clear? That how I used a not actually, right? Yeah, Kalyan, thank you. Please confirm you got it or not. Okay, you're saying yes. Thank you, Ankur. Okay, cool. Now, Bharti, what about you? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, Dr. Satur, you get it? So not is a keyword actually in Python, right? That makes our job easy actually. So these are called as Pythonic codes, right? Okay, so now we understand one more concept here. See, what is that concept? So I'll start from, and can you see, we can optimize this code as well. Can you see? We can optimize this code as well. That if this expression evaluates to true, we return true. If this expression evaluates to false, we return false. So this expression itself will evaluate to true and false, right? Why should I write if and else then? I can also do this, that return this, right? Return this. That's it. And I can remove everything from this. So again, it will return me a true false only. So here we go. So we get the same answer here. Now, this is way, this is the way map and filter works. Now, a couple of additional things here. Couple of additional things. So please focus again, right? See. Here you can see that, while checking for is an even, right? I called both methods. I called map as well, and I called filter as well, right? And for that purpose, I used this function. While calling map, it gave me true, false. And while calling the filter, it only returned me the even values in the output. Now, what happens sometimes, right? That sometimes you may choose a path where you do not call the function which is written outside your statement, right? You do not call the function which is written, outside this map. Then what we can do? You have an option that you can write your function here itself. So you don't need to call is even or some other function. You can write the functionality here itself directly in this line only. So how we do that? For writing that, a functionality, we have to make changes in this statement. So I'll copy and paste it here, and I will remove this function name here. Okay, I removed it, but I want to retain the functionality, and I want to write that functionality here itself. I don't want to call is even. For that purpose, first of all, you have to use a keyword called lambda. So this is how you call, use a keyword lambda. And after this keyword, you use a colon sign. Okay, and now here in between lambda keyword and just before colon, you have to specify that what would be the input, right, to your functionality that you want to implement. So I say input to my functionality. So what was the input to this function? X was the function input. So I write, this is my input. So I'm just trying to replicate this functionality directly here using a lambda keyword, right? So I used lambda here. Then it takes X, and after the colon, you have to specify what is the return. We don't write keyword return, we directly write the expression. So what is the expression that we are returning here if we want to replicate it? So this is how we replicate it. Do you see? So the output would remain same at line number 16 and at line number 17 on, right? The only thing that I have changed, that rather than calling a function, an outsider function, I have returned that here. This is kind of an inline activity, right? This is kind of a writing something inline, right? So here you are using a keyword which will, give an indicator to my compiler Python that, there is some functionality that you need to perform. And what would be that? That you need to take X as the input and you need to return this. Obviously, this will return true and false, right? So here, we get the same output. So can you see? The first is from line number 16 and the second is from line number 17. Okay, similarly we can do this as well. We can make changes here as well, right? So this time also I can write my own lambda function. So but basically these are called lambda functions. Lambda is a keyword, right? And what does it represent? It represents that after this keyword there is a anonymous function. We call this as anonymous function. Why we are calling this as anonymous function? Because it has no name. No one can call this function outside. I cannot call this here. I can only write this functionality here only. But I can call this function from anywhere. Map can call this, filter can call this, even I can call it directly as well. But this is not the flexibility with the lambda. But what is the good utility of a lambda? That helps you to immediately write something there itself, rather than going outside and writing and defining your own function, right, and then calling it from there. You can write some, a utility here itself. You can write that. So how I can replace this as well? Simple, right? So lambda, then it will take X, and then it will return what? This functionality. This is there. So this is, we go here. Similarly, can I, write a lambda for this part as well? How we can replace the F1 with the lambda? Simple, right? I remove the name, I use the keyword lambda, right? Yes, Bharti, kind of inline functions in C++, right? So lambda. So there is no mechanism of calling a function and then getting a return in case of lambda functions, right? So everything happens there. So you may save time on that part. So we are using lambda keyword, right? And now what is the input to F1? I will write this as an input. And what was the return? So this was the return, right? So I will use this in this case as well. So can you see? This is there. So again, right, the output is going to remain same for us. So can you see? We got Los Angeles here, we got here. So if I skip not here, right? If I skip not here, in that case, it will return me Los Angeles, but Lambda will return me San Diego and San Jose. So this is there. So is that clear that how you can write your own Lambda function as well? How you can write your own Lambda function as well. So this is how things work. Is it good? Is that clear with everyone? That was just kind of a replacement, right? That using a Lambda, you can write something there itself. So I think Lambda is good to use if your function is not complex and it's easy. If you have a lot of complexity in the function, then it would be a little difficult for you to manage and convert that function into a Lambda function, right? Because as of now, we have just one simple expression. But if you are doing many things in the function, replacing that with a Lambda would be a kind of a little difficult for you. So you should not do that in that case, because that will increase a complexity in terms of readability, actually, readability of the code. Please confirm if that discussion around Lambda was clear to you. Okay, Minu saying yes. Kalyan saying yes. Okay, good. Good. Thank you. Now we are at the last discussion for today. Now we'll understand one more function, which is part of functional programming in Python. We'll understand that now. See, we are going to understand a third function that is called reduce, right? Yeah, Kalyan, function looks more versatile than Lambda, right? So if your function is just a one-liner function, in that case, it is advisable to go for a Lambda kind of replacement, right? So yeah, otherwise, better to stick with a function kind of writing a function separately and then calling it. This is what I prefer more, actually, right? And maybe we can do one thing. We have a code challenge today for you, which is there in the Google Drive. Please try on that. And tomorrow, what we can do, we can discuss that here in the class. And that code challenge involves writing, a map function and writing, a Lambda function as well. And that is a little complex to handle. So we can, discuss that part, discuss the solution part tomorrow. So please, I would request everyone to go for it and, have your, try your hands on that. And are you able to do it or not? And in any way, we'll discuss the solution in tomorrow's class. Will that be okay with everyone? Yeah. Okay. So now I'm coming to a last point of discussion today, and that is reduce. That is reduce, right? As of now, we were calling map and filter directly, but reduce is not available directly. Reduce is available in some other library, and that library is called as func tools. So I just need to import that func tools first. Func tools, right? That is there, import func tools. And when we import func tools, there we have a function called, so I'm just going to check whether this function is available in func tools or not. So func tools, right? So func tools, and there we have a lot of functions, right? And here I'm looking for a function reduce. Can you see? Reduce is there, right? So how to call that reduce? The calling of the reduce is pretty much simple, actually. right? So let's see, we have a list one, which has couple of, items, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's the list. My list is this time. I'm going to define a one more function. I'll name it as F2. And what is different from the previous part, that now this function will take two inputs. So this will take two inputs, X and Y. And it will return me an addition of X and Y. So I say X plus Y. That's it, right? And now I will call a reduce function and see what comes and what happens. So I'm calling the reduce now. So how to call the reduce? Because that is a part of the func tools. So I need to say func tools, then dot, and then reduce. And then I will call the function f2 here, and I will call my list. So for better explanation, what I do, I copy it here and directly pass the list. I'm not using list one here. I'm just, passing that list directly and just printing it, right? Just printing, right? So, Kalyan, thank you for that. Some typo. So here we have this. Can you see? And let's see what the response comes out for this. Can you see? We got 15 here from this statement, line number 39. What is happening here? If we get 15 here, what is the meaning of this? What has happened? What the reduce has done for us? What reduce has done? We gave the input, it was by input, and we're getting just one output, that is 15. What is that? If you see what is happening, basically 15 is the addition of all these numbers which are in my list one. But how it is working? See this. How the reduce works. Basically, the reduce will call this function f2. Okay. And for calling, it needs two parameters, X and Y. So it will pick two values, 1 and 2 from here. Okay. Passing them. So, one goes to X and 2 goes to Y. And it returns 1 plus 2. So we get 3. This 3 is again passed to F2 as X, right? So what we are doing, we are passing, maybe you can, follow me here. So we are passing 1 and 2, right? And then what we get in the response, we get 3. This value is 3, again passed as X, and we pick the next value for Y from the list. So we get 3 here, right? So for X3, for Y3, and we get output, which is 6. This 6 will work as an input to X again. So we get 6 here, and we pick the value of Y from here. So 4 here, right? So this time it becomes 10. So 10 here. This 10 is again passed as X to my function, and we pick the next value for Y from the list, that is 5. That is the last item we have, right? And now we get this 15. So this is the final output with that we get, right? And if you change this function, so let's say, okay, where my return? So earlier I was doing this X plus Y. If I say X into Y, then what will happen, guys? If I say X into Y, what will happen to my output? We will get a multiplication of all the items in the list one, right? We'll get a multiplication. So here where is that? Oh, I have to just, put them under a comment. So here I put them under comment, right? So this is where we go. So here we go now, and can you see? Hey, what's wrong? Indentation error, where it is line number 38. Oh, okay, I need to correct it. Okay, see. So here we get it. So this is 120. So this is how reduce is working. And now you have to understand two concepts. So is the working of reduce clear? And then I will give you some examples that where they are being used in industry, how people are using it, right? How people are using these, map, reduce kind of concepts in real, scenarios. Is the functionality of reduce clear to you? So Ankur saying yes. Okay. Yeah, Kalyan, you're right. Uh, okay. So Dr. Muthu, I'll explain it one more time. Okay. And I think in that way you will pick it up. So see, we're calling this reduce. So what is the functionality of the reduce? First, we need to understand the philosophy of that. Basically, reduce always and always will return a single object for you, right? It may return a single tuple, which can have multiple values inside, but it will always return a single object. It can be a list object, it can be a tuple, it can be a dictionary, it can be, I will like to talk about dictionary tomorrow actually. So it can be a dictionary, it can be a integer value, it can be a float, it can be anything else, but it has to be a single object. That means whatever you give it to it as input, it reduces that into a single object, right? And what exactly we are trying to do as of now, you can see this F2, this is multiplying, okay, let's keep it to plus. So, it is adding X and Y that we are passing. So how reduce is working in this case? So reduce does two things, so it takes two values from the input data list, 1 and 2. One goes to X and 2 goes to Y, right? And then we add them, we get 3 in the output, right? And now this 3 is retained, right? And this 3 is again passed as a value to X. So now X will take 3. From where we need to get the value of Y, we get the value of Y as a next item from the list. So this time, 3, which was the result from the previous call, we are passing it to X, and we are picking the value for Y from here. So 3 and 3. So we get 6 here. This 6 again goes as an input to F2 for X, and we pick 4 from here. So this time we add them and it becomes 10. This 10 again goes as an input to X, right? And we pick 5 from here for Y, and then makes it 15. So this is how, that means your reduce will work only if your function that you are passing here takes 2 parameters. So reduce always needs a function that will take, right? That will take 2 parameters, right? If I only pass on, let's say 1 parameter, it will not work, right? So this is kind of a recursion, if you see, right? This is kind of a recursion, a function calling again the same function, calling again the same function. So this is how. So Dr. Muthu, is that okay now with you? Okay, fine. Yeah. Now, see, a couple of things. Basically, the use of map and reduce happens in case of big data handling. So how it works? So basically, while do big data handling, your purpose is to find some insights from a large volume of the data. So what you do, you first apply map on that. So you do some functionality, and you can have any functionality. And what comes as output from the map, that goes into reduce. And basically reduce will find out insight for you, because that would be a limited information. So out of a large chunk of the data, large volume of the data, you just get a meaningful data. That would be the responsibility of the reduce. So you can write your own map function, the function that you pass to a map. So you can write your own function that you will be using with map. That obviously depends on the client requirement. Here itself, you can write any function. Obviously, again, that depends on the client requirement. But this is how they work in tandem, right? So map and then reduce. So all of these big data platforms, right? No, this is the concept, Kalyan, right? And every programming language, has a implementation for this. So, guys, all of the big data, tools, they have this functionality on map and reduce. So, our entire Hadoop, this is again based on map and reduce. Your Spark, entirely based on the map and reduce. Your Databricks, right? So you can talk about any, a big data tool, right? All of these are, making use of map and reduce. And what is good part? It may be good part for us that basically map and reduce was a concept first given by a Indian engineer, Sanjay Ghemavat, right? And I think Sanjay Ghemavat is a very popular name in Silicon Valley. He works with Google. He's still, he works with Google. So one of the top programmers there, right? So Sanjay Ghemavat is there. He was the first guy who wrote a paper talking about that how map and reduce, can be used to handle big data sets and all, right? So this is the guy, right? Currently, is still pretty much young. So this is all about, so here you can talk about, so a couple of things are there. So a quick thing around that. So this is about today's session, guys. And let me share, please share your feedback. How was it for you today? And this is second last day, and tomorrow we are going to close the session. Tomorrow we will have the last class, that is Saturday evening for you, right? So please share your feedback. How was it for you today? We focused on functional programming concepts in Python today. So Professor Dr. Muthu saying good, okay. Kalyan saying very useful, okay. Bharti saying good session, okay. Ankur saying good, okay. Minu saying good. Ankur saying got to learn so much of new stuff. Thank you, Ankur. Good. Minu, okay, Minu, okay, fine, yeah. So I think we can close it now. If you have any questions, I'm open for that. Okay, Kalyan. Yeah, see you tomorrow. So guys, we have already shared the registration link for you if you want the certificate. We have already shared with you. So I think you will get that in email as well, right? Yeah. Okay, so Minu, we'll do one thing. We'll take both assignments tomorrow, right? So we'll take today's as well, and yesterday's as well, right? So that way we'll complete it. So we'll take everything in one go. Will that be okay with you, Minu? Sylvester, Minu saying that I could not find the yesterday's assignment question. I have Excel sheet alone. What is that?
So I think so. They are present there itself. In day 3, you have the day 3 assignment. Minu, in the day 3 directory, you have that. Can you hear me, Minu?
Yeah, we can hear you. So,
So you can show the Google Drive, sir.
okay, just a minute. Hold on. If I have that in the Google Drive. Where's that? Okay, just hold on.
It's bitly 16 drive, sir.
Okay, but T16 drive, huh? So bit
FOSS,
dot uh,
bitly,
pause.
free 13, free 16, sorry,
Oh, okay,
16.
got it. Okay, fine. So meaning if you go there, and then we go to day 3. Even solution is also uploaded there. And this is day 3 assignment.txt. I think you are so. So can you see Mina now? There are assignments here. Okay, so I'll share that link with you. Can you, Sylvester, can you share that link? I think you were looking at some wrong location, right? You know. Oh, we just need to check then. Okay, so that's the link you have, and now you can go and check it out. Yeah, FOSS free 16 drive. This is the link. 16. This is the 16th season basically. So this is the link. So see you tomorrow, guys. And yeah. So guys, bye bye. Take care. See you. So okay, I'm closing it now.